I want you to stop scrolling. Just for a minute. I know you've seen 100 stories like this. Girl meets man. Man makes promises. Promises turn to ash. You think you know how it ends before it begins. But this one is mine. And I need you to hear it, not because I want your sympathy, not because I want you to feel sorry for me, but because somewhere out there, right now, there is a girl sitting in a military housing unit with a sleeping man in the next room, counting his footsteps on the stairs, and she thinks she is completely alone. I need her to know she isn't. So stay with me. Let me tell you what happened. My name is Sophia. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment on the east side of the city with my mother, my grandmother, and a rotating cast of aunts and cousins who came and went like seasons. We weren't poor exactly. We were the kind of family that made it work every month by the skin of our teeth and never talked about how close to the edge we actually were. My mother cleaned houses. My grandmother watched telenovelas and prayed. I studied. That was my job in that apartment. That was what everyone agreed on without ever saying it out loud. Maya cleans, Abuela prays, Sophia studies. Because Sophia was going to be the one who made it out. Sophia was going to be the doctor. I was going to be the doctor. I had wanted it since I was 14 years old, sitting in the free clinic on 24th Street translating for my mother because her English wasn't strong enough and the doctors never slowed down long enough to explain anything. A doctor had looked straight through her once, looked at her like she was furniture, like she was an inconvenience, like her pain was a scheduling problem, and I had watched my mother shrink in that plastic chair, and I had thought, not out loud but somewhere deep and permanent, never. Not on my watch. Not if I can help it. I was going to be the doctor who slowed down. I was going to be the one who looked people in the eye and said, I see you. I'm here. Take your time. And I was so close. Full scholarship to UT Austin. Pre-med track. I remember the day the letter came. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with it in my hands while my mother stood behind me and read it over my shoulder and then started crying quietly, the way she cried when she didn't want me to notice. I noticed. I always noticed. The problem was everything the letter didn't cover. Housing. Food. Books. The bus pass. The application fees for the programs I needed to join. My mother worked 2 jobs and sent me $50 a month when she could, and I loved her so much for that $50 that I never told her it wasn't enough. I had $412 in my checking account. I had a landlord in Austin who was already asking about next month's rent before I'd even finished moving in. I was doing math constantly. The brutal, humiliating math of being smart and broke. Of knowing exactly what you're worth and being unable to afford the proof of it. I was 19 years old and I was exhausted before I'd even started. I met him at a recruitment office. I hadn't gone there for myself. My friend Becca wanted to ask about college funding and didn't want to go alone, so I went with her and sat in the waiting area flipping through a pamphlet I wasn't really reading, running the numbers in my head for the 100th time that week. He walked out of the back office and he was, I want to be honest with you, because I think honesty is the only thing that makes this story useful. He was exactly what I would have designed if someone had asked me to design a man who could get through my defenses. 31. Broad shoulders. A way of moving through a room like he already knew how it was going to go. He smiled at people like he meant it. He had this quality, I don't know how else to describe it, where when he looked at you, you felt like the most important person in the room. Staff Sergeant Daniel Voss. He sat down next to me, not behind a desk, not in a position of authority, right next to me like we were the same, and he said, You look like someone trying to solve a problem. I said, I'm always trying to solve a problem. He said, Tell me what it is. I don't know why I told him. I've asked myself that question 1,000 times since. Maybe because I was tired of carrying it alone. Maybe because something in the way he asked felt like he actually wanted to know. Maybe because $412 has a way of making you honest with strangers. I told him everything. The scholarship. The gap. The math that wouldn't work no matter how many times I ran it. He listened to all of it. Then he leaned back in that chair and he said, I think I might have a solution. A marriage of convenience. He explained it the way you explain a business arrangement. Clean. Practical. No emotion in it. I'm rotating up for deployment in 8 months, he said. Married personnel get a significantly higher housing allowance. You'd have full spousal benefits, healthcare, base access, a real support system. You finish your degree. I get the differential. When I come back, if it's not working, we end it quietly. No drama. Nobody gets hurt. I stared at him. That's not a marriage, I said. No, he agreed. It's a contract. People sign contracts every day. This one happens to come with a ring. I went home and I thought about it for 2 weeks. I called my mother. She said, Mija, men who offer things always want something back. Be careful. I talked to Becca. She said, honestly, kind of genius. Also possibly insane. I lay awake every night running the numbers. Every version. Every scenario. What if this? What if that? What if it goes wrong? What if it goes right? The math always came out the same. I said yes. The first year was almost exactly what he promised. I enrolled at Austin Peay State University, 40 minutes from Fort Campbell. 18 credit hours. I studied in the base library and ate at the commissary and learned the language of military life, the ranks, the customs, the unspoken hierarchies, the way everyone knew everyone else's business and had very strong opinions about what to do with that information. Daniel deployed 6 months in. And I want to tell you something about those 6 months he was gone. I was almost happy. Not completely. Not without complications. But there was a version of the life I had imagined that started to feel possible when he wasn't there. I studied without watching the clock. I stayed late in the library. I joined a study group, 4 of us, rotating kitchens, bad coffee, genuinely good conversation. My professor told me I had a gift for seeing patterns in data that other students missed. I went for runs in the morning and cooked dinner for myself and called my mother on Sundays and felt, for the first time in a long time, like I was moving toward something. Then he came back. And things started to change. It was small at first. That's what I need you to understand. It is always small at first. He didn't like the study group. 3 guys and a girl, he said. I don't think that's a great setup. They're classmates, I said. I know what they are, he said. I'm telling you what it looks like. I stopped going to the study group. I told myself it was just easier. I told myself I could study just as well at home. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. He thought I was spending too much time on campus. You're gone from 8 in the morning until 6 at night, he said. That's a full workday. I'm a pre-med student, I said. That's what pre-med looks like. I just think you could manage your time better, he said. I started coming home earlier. My GPA dropped half a point. I told myself it was the adjustment period. I told myself I'd get it back next semester. He got promoted to staff sergeant. He celebrated with his unit. I made dinner and waited up and pretended to be asleep when he came home after midnight and slipped into bed next to me smelling like a bar and someone else's cigarettes. That was the end of year 1. Year 2 was when I learned to measure his footsteps. I know that sounds strange. Let me explain. Every person who lives in a situation like the one I was in develops a system. You have to. Your nervous system demands it. You start reading everything, the way the door closes, the way the keys hit the counter, the weight of his footsteps on the stairs. Heavy means dangerous. Light means you have time. Somewhere between the two means you need to gauge the rest before you decide where to position yourself. I became very good at reading the room. I found myself apologizing for things I hadn't done. Explaining myself before he asked. Bracing, that's the word. The way you brace before impact, except you're doing it constantly, all the time, as a way of life, until the bracing becomes invisible even to yourself. I dropped 2 classes because the schedule made him tense. I told myself I'd make them up next semester. Next semester came. I didn't make them up. My mother called every Sunday. Every Sunday I told her I was fine. She always paused a beat too long before saying, okay, Mija. I always changed the subject before she could ask the question I could hear forming. I had no money of my own. My name was on the joint account, but it was functionally his direct deposit, his passwords, his records. I had a debit card that worked until it didn't, and it didn't when he was angry, and I had learned not to be somewhere that required money when he was angry. I was 21 years old. I was surrounded by thousands of people on a military installation, and I had never felt more alone in my life. The bruise was from a Tuesday. I want to say that plainly because I spent a long time not saying it plainly, even to myself. I dressed it in other language. An incident. A moment. He lost his temper. Things got physical. No. The bruise on my left arm was from a Tuesday when he grabbed me hard enough to leave marks, and I stood in the bathroom afterward and looked at my arm for a long time and then put on a long-sleeved shirt and went to make dinner. He apologized. He always apologized. He said he didn't mean to leave a mark, which is a very specific thing to apologize for, not the act, but the evidence of it. I believed him. I believed him the way you believe things you desperately need to be true because the alternative is a door you're not ready to open yet. When the medic saw the bruise during a routine check, I told her I hit it on a door frame during PT. She looked at me for a moment too long. "You sure?" she said. "Yes," I said. "I'm sure." She wrote it down. She let me go. I think about her sometimes. I wonder if she knew. I think she knew. The name on his phone was Specialist Jordan T. I picked up the phone by accident, same case, same model, side by side on the kitchen counter. The screen lit up before I realized it wasn't mine. Last night was everything. "When are you telling her?" I stood in the kitchen holding his phone. I put it back exactly where it was. I walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, sat down on the floor of the tub fully clothed and let the water run until it went cold. And here is the thing I need you to understand, the thing I couldn't understand about myself for a long time afterward. I wasn't surprised. Not even a little. That was what broke something open in me. Not the message. Not the betrayal. My own reaction to it. The absolute absence of shock. Some part of me had been waiting for something exactly like this, some undeniable, documented, irrefutable proof, because that was the only thing that would give me permission. Permission to leave. I had nowhere to go. No money. No family within 1,000 miles. No job. I had dropped enough classes that my status was complicated, my timeline extended, my confidence in the whole endeavor quietly hollowed out from the inside. I had a marriage that wasn't a marriage and a contract that had become a cage. I sat on the floor of that tub until the water went cold, and then I got up and changed my clothes and went to bed. But something had shifted. Somewhere inside me, a door had opened. I didn't know what was on the other side. I just knew I was going to find out. Her name was Sergeant First Class Diana Torres. She found me at lunch the next day. I was sitting in the cafeteria in front of a tray I hadn't touched, staring at nothing, running the same calculations I'd been running since the night before. If I leave, where do I go? If I stay, how long? If I leave, what do I have? If I stay, what do I become? She sat down across from me without being invited. 22 years in the army. The kind of woman who had seen everything twice and remembered all of it. She wore her experience the way some people wear rank, not loudly, just permanently. "You look like someone who hasn't slept," she said. "I slept fine," I said. "You look like someone who hasn't slept," she said again, "and who's been telling everyone she slept fine." I stared at my tray. Sergeant Torres, Diana. Right now, sitting here, I'm Diana. She set down her own tray. "Talk to me." "I don't know where to start." "Start in the middle," she said. "We'll find the beginning." It came out in pieces at first. Then all at once. 3 years of it. The contract that became a cage. The isolation that happened so slowly I hadn't noticed until I was already surrounded. The joint account that was functionally his. The classes I'd dropped. The friends who'd faded. The bruise I'd blamed on a door frame. The name on the phone. Diana listened to all of it. She didn't write anything down. She didn't reach for my hand. She didn't make sympathetic sounds or tilt her head the way people do when they're performing concern rather than feeling it. She just listened. Completely. The way soldiers listen when they understand that paying attention is itself a form of action. When I finished, the cafeteria was nearly empty. Both our trays were cold. "How long?" she asked. "The bad parts?" "About 1.5 years. "The marriage?" 3 years. She nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "Here's what you need to know. First, you are not trapped. I know that's not what it feels like right now. I know it feels like the walls are right up against you and every door has his name on it. That feeling is part of how this works. It is not the truth." I opened my mouth. "Let me finish," she said. I closed it. On this installation, right now, there is a family advocacy program office. Civilian staff. Confidential. Specifically designed for exactly what you're describing. They do not automatically report to the chain of command. They do not tell your husband. Their job, their only job, is to help you understand your options and make a plan. What if he finds out I went? She looked at me. How would he find out? I opened my mouth. Closed it again. I realized I didn't have an answer. I had a fear. A fear that had been living in me so long it had learned to disguise itself as a fact. Second, you can see a JAG attorney. Free. Confidential. They will explain exactly what divorce looks like when one spouse is active duty and one is a dependent. You have legal rights you don't know about because you have not been allowed to know about them. I have no money, Diana. Army Emergency Relief. The Soldiers' Relief Fund. The installation chaplain has a discretionary fund that exists precisely for situations like yours, and most people never know it's there. Military OneSource is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can connect you to emergency resources tonight if you need them. She held my gaze. There are more nets under you than he has let you see. That has been deliberate. And it is fixable. I looked down at my hands. 3 years. 3 years of feeling like the floor was always 2 inches lower than I thought. He's a staff sergeant, I said. I'm a PFC, and I'm an SFC who has been on this installation for 6 years, Diana said, and knows every single person in that FP office by their first name. She stood up. You are not doing this alone. That part is over. It ended the moment you told me. The Family Advocacy Program office was in a low beige building on the far side of the installation, between the chapel and the health clinic. Unremarkable from the outside. The kind of building you walk past without seeing. I had walked past it many times. The counselor's name was Patricia Webb. Civilian. Mid-50s. Steady, unhurried, the kind of calm that isn't performed but earned. She had a legal pad on her desk and a box of tissues on the corner table that she didn't draw attention to. It was just there, in case, the way all good preparation is. Tell me what's been happening, she said. Take as much time as you need. We're not in a hurry here. I looked at Diana, who had come with me and sat to my left. She nodded once. And I told the truth. All of it. Out loud. To a person with the authority and the resources to do something about it. I don't know how to explain what that felt like. If you've ever held something heavy for a very long time, so long that you stopped noticing the weight, so long that carrying it became just the baseline condition of your body, you might understand what it felt like to finally set it down. Not relief exactly. Not yet. But the beginning of relief. The first breath before the exhale. I didn't go back to the house that night. Diana had a spare room. A key. Fresh towels folded on the bed and no questions and a door that locked from the inside. I stood in the doorway of that room for a long moment. Then I reached out and closed the door. Then I opened it again. I stood there doing that, just opening and closing a door that was mine to open and close, that no one else had a claim on, that responded only to me, until something in my chest loosened and I laughed. Quietly. The way you laugh when something is both painful and exactly right at the same time. I called my mother at 9 o'clock. We talked for 2 hours. She cried. I didn't. I was saving my crying for later when I had more room for it. I slept for 7 hours straight. No measuring footsteps. No reading the air. No calculating the distance between myself and the nearest exit. Just quiet. Just me. Just the beginning of whatever came next. 3 weeks later, I sat across from Captain Rosa Flores in the JAG office with my own legal pad and my own pen, and I wrote down everything she told me. She explained the Service Members Civil Relief Act. She explained what I was entitled to as a dependent spouse during divorce proceedings. She explained housing rights and benefit continuation and the timeline of the legal process. She explained what a protective order looked like and how fast one could be obtained if the situation required it. She explained that a marriage of convenience was still a legal marriage, and a legal marriage had legal protections for both parties, not just the one who had been holding the money. When she finished, she folded her hands on the desk and asked me simply, "What do you want?" I set down my pen. I thought about the girl I had been at 19. for $112. A dream. A calculation that had felt, at the time, like the only door available. I thought about who she had become in the years since. Against the odds. In spite of everything. Still here. Still, somehow, after all of it, still wanting the same thing she had always wanted. To be the doctor who slowed down. I want my life back, I said. The one I was going to have before I let fear make my decisions. Captain Flores opened a folder. Then let's build it back, she said. One document at a time. 6 months later. I'm sitting in the back row of a lecture hall at Austin Peay State University. Anatomy and physiology too. My notes are open. Minutes are open. My highlighters are lined up in order, yellow, blue, green, pink, the way I've always kept them since I was 14 years old at that kitchen table, the one system I never let him take from me. The professor is explaining the mechanics of the human heart. The chambers. The valves. The precise, extraordinary choreography of pressure and release that keeps a person alive without them ever having to consciously think about it. I underline something. Outside the window, October is turning the campus gold. I have my own apartment now. 2nd floor. Small. A door with a deadbolt I installed myself, watching the same YouTube tutorial 3 times until I was sure I'd done it right. The first night I slept there I checked the lock 4 times before bed. The second night 3. Last night once. Progress. I have a bank account with my name on it. Only my name. I have 17 credits this semester. I will graduate in May. I have a therapist I see on Thursdays who is helping me understand that the hypervigilance, the footstep counting, the air reading, the constant low-level calculation of danger is not a character flaw. It is a survival skill that my nervous system developed because it needed to. And now it needs to learn that it doesn't need to anymore. That takes time. We're working on it. I have Diana, who texts on Sundays. Sometimes just to check in. Sometimes a meme about coffee. Sometimes on hard days, just thinking of you. I have my mother, who calls every day now. Sometimes just to say, Mija, how was your afternoon? Ordinary things. The kind of ordinary I didn't know I was missing until I had it back. The professor moves to the next slide. I turn the page in my notebook and keep writing. Outside, the October light holds. I am 22 years old. I have a very long way to go. I have never been more certain that I will get there. And if you were where I was, if you are lying in the dark right now measuring someone's breathing, if you are bracing, if you are doing the math and the math isn't working and you cannot see a door that doesn't have his name on it, I need you to hear me. The door exists. You just haven't been allowed to see it yet. Call Military One Source, 1-800-342-9647. Available 24 hours. Completely confidential. Ask about the Family Advocacy Program on your installation. Ask to speak to a JAG attorney. You have more rights than you know. You have more support than you've been shown. And you are not. You have never been as alone as they needed you to believe. My name is Sophia. I got out. So can you. She came in with a contract. She left with herself.